I found my son slumped against a shopping cart in the Safeway parking lot at 11 p.m., his daughter asleep in the back seat of a Honda with a cracked windshield. 3 garbage bags of clothes sat in the trunk. He looked up when I tapped on the window, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Defeat. "Mom," he whispered when he opened the door. I didn't know where else to go. I looked past him at my granddaughter, 6 years old, still in her school uniform, dried tears on her cheeks. Then I looked at my son, this man I'd raised alone after his father died, this architect who'd built half the civic buildings in Portland, sitting in a grocery store parking lot like he had nowhere left in the world. "Get Emma," I said quietly. "Both of you are coming home. Welcome to today's story." Before we begin, please hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Quick reminder, this story contains dramatized elements for educational purposes. While some details are fictionalized, the lessons about recognizing manipulation and protecting your family are absolutely real. The rain was coming down hard, the way it does in Oregon in November. My son lifted Emma from the back seat. She didn't wake up, just curled against his shoulder with her stuffed penguin clutched in one hand. I opened the rear door of my Lexus, and he laid her gently across the back seat. Then he climbed into the passenger side, and we drove in silence. My house in the West Hills sat on 2 acres with a view of Mount Hood. I'd built it myself 15 years ago after my husband died, after I'd taken his small engineering firm and turned it into something that mattered. The gate opened as we approached. My son stared out the window like he was seeing it for the first time. "I never knew it was this big," he said softly. "You never asked." Inside, I showed him to the guest wing, 2 bedrooms connected by a bathroom. Emma stirred when he laid her on the bed, opened her eyes briefly. "Grandma? Where are we?" "My house, sweetheart. You're safe now." She closed her eyes again, and I pulled the blanket up to her chin. In the hallway, my son leaned against the wall, and I saw his hands were shaking. I led him downstairs to the kitchen, made coffee, and set a cup in front of him. Then I sat down and waited. "Rachel kicked us out," he finally said. "This morning. Changed the locks while I was at a site meeting. When I came home, everything was on the lawn. My clothes, Emma's toys, everything." He wrapped both hands around the coffee cup. "She said I was abusive. Filed a restraining order. I can't go within 500 feet of the house." His voice cracked. "Mom, I never touched her. Never raised my voice. I don't understand what's happening." I did. But I needed to hear the rest. "What about work?" He closed his eyes. "Preston fired me yesterday. Said there were complaints about my conduct. Inappropriate behavior with clients." He stared at the table. "It's not true. None of it's true. But he's Rachel's stepfather, so..." Preston Caldwell, Rachel's stepfather. The man who'd been managing Hayes Engineering for the past 8 years, while I'd quietly stepped back, let him run the day-to-day operations, let him think he was in charge. The man who had no idea that the company he thought he managed actually belonged to me, held through a trust my husband had set up before he died. I stood up, walked to the window, watched the rain slide down the glass. My son thought Preston Caldwell had built Hayes Engineering. Rachel thought her stepfather was some kind of business genius. They had no idea. "When does the restraining order hearing happen?" I asked. "Friday. 3 days. He put his head in his hands. "Mom, she's going to take Emma. She's going to say I'm dangerous and I won't be able to see my daughter. I can't." His voice broke completely. "I can't lose Emma." I turned from the window. "You're not going to lose her." "How do you know?" "Because I know exactly what Rachel Caldwell is, and I know exactly how to stop her." He looked up at me confused. "What do you mean?" I pulled out my phone, sent a text to my head of security. Just 3 words, "Time to move." Then I looked at my son. "Go upstairs, get some sleep. Tomorrow, we start fighting back." That night, I sat in my office with a bourbon and pulled up the file I'd been building for 2 years. Marcus, my security director, had started it the month after my son married Rachel. Not because I didn't trust her, because I didn't trust Preston Caldwell. The man had appeared in my life too conveniently, too perfectly, right when my husband died and I was drowning in grief and business decisions. He'd offered to help manage Hayes Engineering, take some weight off my shoulders, let me focus on healing. I'd been smart enough to say yes while keeping the actual ownership hidden. Smart enough to watch, smart enough to wait. The file was 200 pages now, bank records, text messages, photos, a pattern that made my skin crawl. Preston Caldwell wasn't just Rachel's stepfather, he was her partner, and Hayes Engineering wasn't the first company they'd targeted. I opened my laptop, pulled up the list Marcus had compiled, 4 companies in the past 12 years. Each one followed the same script. Preston would take a management position. Rachel would marry someone connected to the company. Within 2 years, the husband would be accused of abuse or fraud or both. Restraining orders, arrests, the husband would be pushed out. Preston would consolidate control. The company would be sold. They'd walk away with millions. My husband had been number 3. I just hadn't known it at the time. He died of a heart attack 3 months after Preston started working for us. I'd been so lost in grief I hadn't questioned it. Hadn't wondered why a healthy 58-year-old man suddenly dropped dead. The coroner said, natural causes. I'd believed it. But now I pulled up the autopsy report Marcus had obtained, read the toxicology screen again. Elevated potassium levels. Could indicate natural heart failure. Could also indicate something else. I picked up my phone, called someone I'd known for 20 years. Dr. Sarah Chen answered on the second ring. Catherine, it's late. Everything okay? I need you to look at something. Medical records. Quietly. I could hear her sit up. What kind of records? Cardiac event. Possible poisoning. I'll be at your office at 7 a.m. There was a pause. Kath, are we talking about Thomas? We're talking about making sure it never happens to anyone else. At 6:45 a.m., I was in Sarah's office. She'd already reviewed the file. Her face was grim. The potassium levels are consistent with hyperkalemia. That can happen naturally in cardiac arrest. But, she pulled up another screen. These levels are extremely high. If I were investigating this death now, I'd be looking for external introduction of potassium. You're saying someone gave him potassium to trigger the heart attack? I'm saying it's possible. Likely, even. She closed the file. Catherine, if you're thinking what I think you're thinking, you need to be very careful. I am careful. That's why I'm here. Can you document this? Write a medical opinion on what these levels indicate? She nodded. I'll have it by tonight. But Kath, this is 8 years old. The statute of limitations. Hasn't run on murder. Her eyes widened. You think Preston Caldwell killed your husband? I think Preston Caldwell has killed his way through 4 companies and 4 marriages. And my son is number 5. By noon, I was in my attorney's office. Linda Morrison had handled my business for 15 years. She sat across from me with her legal pad, listening. When I finished, she set down her pen. You're talking about going to war with Preston Caldwell. I'm talking about protecting my son and exposing a murderer. Linda leaned back. Okay. First, we need to defeat the restraining order. That means we need evidence that Rachel fabricated the abuse claims. Do we have that? Marcus is working on it. Second, we need to secure your son's parental rights. That means we need to prove Rachel is an unfit mother or part of a criminal conspiracy. Do we have that? We will by Friday. Linda studied me. Catherine, I've known you a long time. You're one of the most careful, strategic people I've ever met. So, I have to ask, are you sure about this? Because once you start this, there's no going back. I thought of my son, sleeping upstairs, broken in a way I'd never seen. I thought of Emma, 6 years old, being used as leverage in a con game. I thought of my husband, dying in his office while I was at a charity luncheon, never knowing someone had poisoned him. I'm sure. Then let's destroy them. That afternoon, my son sat in my living room with Emma on his lap. She was drawing pictures, completely unaware of what was happening. My son looked at me. Mom, I need to tell you something. I've been going over everything, trying to figure out what I did wrong. And he stopped, took a breath. There were things, small things, but they didn't make sense until now. I sat down across from him. Tell me. He looked at Emma, then back at me. A year ago, Rachel started talking about Preston retiring, said he wanted to sell Hayes Engineering. She kept pushing me to support it, said we'd make millions, that we could retire early, travel. I said no. Said I'd just made junior partner, that I loved my job. She got angry. Really angry. Said I was holding her back. I nodded. What else? 6 months ago, she started isolating me. Said my friends were toxic. Said you were controlling. Got upset every time I mentioned visiting you. She convinced me to stop going to my poker night. Stop calling you as much. She said we needed to focus on our family, that everyone else was a distraction. Classic isolation technique. I know that now. But at the time, I thought she was right. Thought I was being a better husband. What else? Last month, she started creating situations. She'd say I yelled at her, but I hadn't. She'd show me texts I supposedly sent, but I didn't remember writing them. She'd tell Emma I was angry, make Emma scared of me. He put his head in his hands. I thought I was going crazy. You're not crazy. You were being gaslit, systematically, so she could build a case against you. But why? What does she get out of destroying me? She gets you out of Hayes Engineering. Then Preston sells the company, takes the money, and they move on to the next target. He stared at me. You mean there were others? 4 others that we know of. Each one followed the same pattern. My son went pale. Mom, is this what happened to Dad? I didn't answer. But he saw it in my face. Oh God, they killed him. Didn't they? We don't have proof yet. But we will. Marcus arrived at 6 p.m. with a tablet and a grim expression. He sat down at my dining table and we all gathered around. My son, Linda the attorney, and me. Emma was upstairs watching a movie, safely out of earshot. Marcus opened the tablet. I found 5 women in Portland. All of them dated Preston Caldwell between 2008 and 2015, before Rachel was part of his operation. I pulled up their statements. He slid the tablet across. I read the first one. My name is Jennifer Torres. I dated Preston Caldwell for 8 months in 2010. He was charming at first. Took me to nice dinners. Introduced me to important people. Then he started controlling my money. Said he was helping me budget. He convinced me to add him to my bank account. 3 months later, $40,000 was gone. When I confronted him, he said I'd authorized the withdrawals, showed me documents with my signature. I never signed them. I went to the police. They said it was a civil matter. Preston disappeared before I could file a lawsuit. I scrolled to the next one. My name is Angela Reed. Preston Caldwell was my financial advisor in 2012. He convinced me to invest in a real estate deal. $85,000. The deal fell through. He said the money was gone. I later found out there never was a real estate deal. He kept the money. When I tried to press charges, he produced a document saying I'd given him the money as a gift. My signature was forged. The police said there wasn't enough evidence. 3 more women. Same story. Preston would gain their trust, get access to their money, steal it, disappear before they could fight back. Marcus pulled up another file. Then in 2016, Preston married Rachel's mother, Diane Hoffman. Diane owned a small manufacturing company in Seattle. Within a year, Preston was managing the company. Within 2 years, Diane was dead. Cardiac event, age 52. My son made a sound. The company? Sold 6 months after Diane died. Preston walked away with $3 million. Rachel, who was 24 at the time, inherited nothing. That's when they became partners. Linda the attorney was making notes. This is a pattern. A clear, documented pattern of fraud, theft, and possibly murder. If we can connect these cases to what's happening now, we already have. Marcus opened another file. Rachel's phone records. I've been monitoring them for 6 months. He showed us a text exchange from 2 weeks ago. Preston. Time to move on, Jay. This one's played out. Rachel. He won't sign off on selling. His mother's the problem. Preston. Then we accelerate. Use the girl as leverage. File the DV claim. I'll fire him tomorrow. Once he's desperate, he'll have no choice. Rachel. What about the mother? Preston. Catherine Hayes is old, grieving, and out of the picture. She's not a problem. I looked at my son. He was staring at the screen, his face white. They planned this, all of it. They were going to force me out. Take Emma. Make me so desperate I'd do anything, including agreeing to sell the company I don't even own. Marcus nodded. They think Hayes Engineering belongs to Preston. They have no idea you held it in trust the whole time. Linda looked at me. When do you want to reveal that? Friday. At the restraining order hearing. In front of a judge. Let's make it very public. Thursday morning, Marcus brought me one more piece. Security footage from my son's house. The camera hidden in the smoke detector in the kitchen. I'd had Marcus install it 6 months ago when things started feeling wrong. Now I understood why. The video showed Rachel and Preston in the kitchen. Date stamp, 3 weeks ago, 10 p.m. My son was at a late site meeting. Emma was asleep upstairs. Rachel sat at the kitchen table with a laptop open. Preston stood behind her. You need to make the bruises look real, he was saying. Not too obvious, just enough to photograph. Rachel rolled up her sleeve, picked up something from the table. A meat tenderizer. She hit herself on the upper arm. Once. Twice. Hard enough to leave marks. Preston watched, nodded. Good. Do the other arm. She switched arms, hit herself again. Winced. This better be worth it. It will be. Once we get the restraining order, he's out of the house. You file for full custody. I fire him. He'll be so desperate he'll sign anything to see his daughter, including the company's sale. What if he fights? He won't. Marcus turned off the video. That was 3 weeks ago. The next day, Rachel went to the police, filed a domestic violence report, claimed your son had grabbed her arms during an argument, showed them the bruises. My son made a choking sound. She did that to herself, and blamed me. Marcus pulled up photos, the police photos from Rachel's report. The bruises matched exactly. Linda was already typing on her laptop. This is huge. This proves fabrication, proves conspiracy. This alone will defeat the restraining order and probably get Rachel charged with filing a false police report. But there's more. Marcus opened another file. Financial records. Hayes Engineering accounts. For the past 6 months, Preston has been systematically moving money. Small amounts, $50,000 here, $75,000 there. It's hidden in legitimate-looking expenses. Equipment purchases, consultant fees, but none of those expenses are real. He's embezzled close to $800,000, setting up for the final theft before he disappeared. Linda looked at me. You need to file a police report. Get ahead of this. Not yet. Friday, we do it all at once. In court, where Preston and Rachel will be trapped. Friday morning at 9 a.m., I walked into the Multnomah County Courthouse with my son, Linda, and Marcus. Emma stayed home with my housekeeper, safe and unaware. Rachel was already there with her attorney, sitting on the bench outside the courtroom. She was dressed conservatively, navy suit, hair pulled back, playing the victim role perfectly. When she saw my son, she flinched. Actually flinched, like she was afraid. My son stiffened beside me. I squeezed his arm. She's performing. Don't react. Preston Caldwell arrived 5 minutes later. Expensive suit. Confident stride. He saw me and smiled. Catherine, good to see you. Didn't expect you'd be here. I wouldn't miss it. He frowned slightly, something flickering in his eyes. Then the courtroom doors opened, and we went inside. Judge Patricia Nguyen took the bench at 9:30. She reviewed the file in front of her, then looked up. This is a restraining order hearing. Rachel Caldwell has filed for protection against James Hayes, alleging domestic violence. Mr. Hayes is contesting the order. She looked at Rachel's attorney. Counsel, present your case. Rachel's attorney stood. Your Honor, my client has been subjected to months of escalating abuse, verbal intimidation, physical violence. She has bruises to prove it. She fears for her safety and the safety of their daughter. We're asking the court to grant a permanent restraining order and award my client full custody. Judge Nguyen looked at the photos in the file. These bruises, when did they occur? 3 weeks ago, during an argument. My client finally found the courage to report it. The judge looked at my son. Mr. Hayes, do you have representation? Linda stood. Yes, Your Honor. Linda Morrison, representing Mr. Hayes, and I have evidence that will show these allegations are completely fabricated. The judge raised an eyebrow. Fabricated? Yes, Your Honor. Linda walked to the front, handed a USB drive to the bailiff. If the court will allow me to present video evidence. Judge Nguyen nodded. Proceed. The courtroom screen flickered on. The video played. Rachel and Preston in the kitchen. The meat tenderizer. The self-inflicted bruises. The conversation about framing my son. The courtroom went silent. Rachel's face drained of color. Preston sat frozen. When the video ended, Judge Nguyen looked at Rachel. Miss Caldwell, did you inflict those bruises on yourself? Rachel's attorney started to speak. Judge, we need time to. I asked Miss Caldwell a question. Rachel opened her mouth, closed it, couldn't speak. Judge Nguyen's voice was ice. This is one of the most egregious cases of false reporting I have seen in 20 years on the bench. She looked at the bailiff. Contact the district attorney's office. Miss Caldwell will be facing criminal charges for filing a false police report. She turned to my son. Mr. Hayes, the restraining order is denied. Furthermore, I am granting you temporary full custody of your daughter pending a full custody hearing. But we're not done. Linda stood again. Your Honor, there's more. Preston Caldwell has embezzled nearly $800,000 from Hayes Engineering over the past 6 months. We have complete financial records documenting the theft. She handed another folder to the bailiff. Additionally, we have evidence linking Mr. Pfaff Caldwell to a pattern of fraud and theft spanning 12 years and 4 companies. Preston shot to his feet. That's absurd. I built Hayes Engineering. I've managed it for 8 years. Linda smiled. You managed it. You didn't build it. And you certainly don't own it. She pulled out one more document. Hayes Engineering is held in trust by the Hayes Family Trust, established in 2008. The sole trustee and owner is Catherine Hayes, my son's mother, the woman you dismissed as old, grieving, and out of the picture. Every eye in the courtroom turned to me. I stood slowly, met Preston's eyes. I've owned Hayes Engineering since my husband died. You worked for me, you embezzled from me, and you tried to destroy my son. Preston's face went from pale to red. You! He couldn't get words out. You let me think. I let you show me exactly who you were. And now everyone else knows too. Judge Nguyen banged her gavel. Mr. Caldwell, remain seated. She looked at the bailiff. Contact the police. Mr. Caldwell will be taken into custody for embezzlement and fraud. I'm also issuing an emergency order freezing all of his assets pending investigation. Preston started talking fast. Your Honor, this is a misunderstanding. I can explain the finances. They are legitimate. The doors at the back of the courtroom opened. 2 police officers entered. Marcus had called them 15 minutes ago. They walked down the aisle, and Preston saw them coming. Tried to stand. Tried to move toward the side exit. The officers reached him first. Preston Caldwell, you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. Turn around. They cuffed him right there in the courtroom. Rachel was crying now, her attorney trying to calm her. But Judge Nguyen wasn't done. Miss Caldwell, you're also under arrest for filing a false police report and conspiracy to commit fraud. The officers moved to Rachel next. She was sobbing, saying this wasn't supposed to happen, that Preston promised it would work. They led both of them out. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Nguyen banged her gavel again. Order. She looked at my son. Mr. Hayes, I'm deeply sorry for what you've endured. You have full custody of your daughter. A full hearing will be scheduled, but I don't anticipate any changes. She looked at me. Mrs. Hayes, you've done this court a service. Thank you. Linda gathered her files. My son and I walked out of the courthouse into the cold November air. He was shaking. Mom, you, his voice broke. You saved my life. I put my arm around him. That's what mothers do. We walked to the car. Marcus was already waiting, and we drove home in silence. When we got there, Emma ran to her father, and he caught her, held her so tight I thought he might never let go. 3 months later, I stood in the lobby of Hayes Engineering, the company my husband had built, the company I'd protected through 8 years of watching and waiting. My son stood beside me. He wore a suit, his architect's confidence returning. The board meeting had just ended. Emma was at school, safe and happy. Preston and Rachel were awaiting trial, facing 20 years for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The DA had also reopened the investigation into my husband's death. Sarah Chen's medical opinion had been enough to warrant exhuming his body. The toxicology results came back last week. Lethal levels of potassium chloride, injected, not natural. My husband had been murdered. Preston would face those charges too. My son looked around the lobby. I never knew you owned all of this. You were supposed to earn your place here, not inherit it, not have it given to you. I wanted you to build something yourself. He nodded slowly. And Preston? I was protecting you from him. I knew he was dangerous. I just didn't know how dangerous until it was almost too late. We walked outside. The Portland sky was clear for once, winter sun breaking through the clouds. I thought about the 4 companies Preston had destroyed, the women he'd stolen from, my husband, murdered for a company Preston thought he could take. I thought about my son, sitting in a parking lot 3 months ago, broken and desperate. And I thought about Emma, who would grow up knowing her father fought for her, that her grandmother fought for both of them. My son put his arm around me. Thank you, Mom, for everything. I squeezed his hand. That's what family does. We protect each other. We walked to my car. Marcus was waiting. He'd found something else this morning. Another woman. Another victim. A case from 2007, before any of us knew Preston Caldwell existed. She'd agreed to testify. The pattern was bigger than we'd thought, but we'd stopped it. Finally. Completely. And Preston Caldwell would spend the rest of his life in prison, paying for every person he'd ever hurt. If you're still with me, I need you to understand something. This story contains dramatized elements, but the core truth is real. There are people like Preston and Rachel in this world. They're charming, professional, convincing. They target successful people, gain their trust, and destroy them systematically. My lesson to you is this: trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate. Protect your family's finances. Watch for isolation tactics. Document everything. And never, ever assume someone is powerless just because they're grieving or old or quiet. Sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one nobody notices. I'm Catherine Hayes. Check on your loved ones. Ask questions. Don't wait until they're sitting in a parking lot with nowhere left to go. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this story. Someone needs to hear it. May God protect you and yours. Stay vigilant, stay strong,